I welcome you all for today's session on gaseous exchange. So, in this session we are going to discuss an most important topic on physiology, which is a gaseous exchange that happens in the lungs. So, before going into the session, I welcome you all once again. Let us move. So, gaseous exchange. So, the respiratory system is a major important crucial system in the human body, which comprises of external nostrils, internal trachea and other organs like pharynx, larynx, and it passes into the lungs. Human body has two lungs, one is a 3-lobed and another one is a 2-lobed lungs. Okay, so the gaseous exchange actually happens in the alveoli, which is the final basic functional unit of the lungs. So, the actual process of exchange of gases happens in the alveoli. Gaseous exchange happens between the alveoli and the blood, and also from the blood to the tissues. There are two types of gaseous exchange. One happens between the alveoli of the lungs and the blood capillaries, and the another one is the blood, the pure blood, oxygenated blood, which is carried to different parts of the body with the other tissues and cells in the human body. So, alveoli are the primary site for the gaseous exchange. The gaseous, we call it as a gaseous exchange. The gases which are mainly exchanged in the respiratory system are oxygen and carbon dioxide through simple diffusion process. Diffusion process is the movement of gases from the one outer layer to the inner layers of the cells and tissues. So, we call the gases or the gases involved in the gaseous exchange are oxygen and carbon dioxide. The oxygen from the outer atmosphere enters into the lungs, enters into the alveolar sac, enters into the alveoli, and it is exchanged into the blood. Okay, so why do we need oxygen? For survival. So, the oxygen is required for all the cells. Each and every cells require oxygen, and it is each and every cell utilizes the oxygen for energy mechanisms and energy metabolism. So, at the same time, at the end of the energy metabolism and various metabolic processes, carbon dioxide is being produced by the cells, which is being again taken by the blood, and it is being excreted through the lungs. So, these two gases are exchanged through the gaseous exchange process. The gases are exchanged by simple diffusion mechanism. So, there are certain factors influences the gaseous exchange. To happen the gaseous exchange, to run the gaseous exchange, certain factors are responsible, certain things in the lungs are responsible to exchange the gases. So, they are the partial pressures of the gases. Another one is the diffusion system between the respiratory membranes. The respiratory membranes around the alveoli, around the lungs has a major role, and the surface area for the gaseous exchange. The surface area of the lungs, the ability of the lungs to take the gaseous exchange, and the solubility of the gases. The oxygen and carbon dioxide have their own solubility nature, and these four factors are responsible for the gaseous exchange. We are going to discuss one by one in detail. So, the partial pressure, the first one is the gaseous exchange takes place based on the pressure gradient exerted by the gases. So, the partial pressure means each and every molecule exerts a certain pressure. So, partial pressure is a particular type of pressure which which explains the pressure exerted by the gases in a gaseous mixture. For example, in the atmosphere we have oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide and all the other gases. Each gases exert certain pressure on the air. So, the same way the gases also exerts the pressure on the alveoli and also in the blood. So, based on the differences in the partial pressure, the gases are moved from one places to other. So, actually the pressure differences from any component, any materials, either liquid or gases, which always moves from the high pressure area to the low pressure area. So, when the oxygen pressure, the partial pressure of the oxygen is more, exchange happens between the alveoli and the blood. When the partial pressure of the oxygen is higher in the alveoli and the partial pressure of the oxygen in the blood which will be lower after the metabolic processes, the gaseous exchange takes place. Movement of oxygen from the higher partial pressure to the lower partial pressure, that is movement of oxygen from the alveoli to the blood. So, the rate of diffusion of gases is directly proportional to the partial pressure of the different gases through the semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable membrane means it allows certain particles, certain substances to pass through and it restricts the other things. So, only the gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide are passes through the lungs or alveolar tissues, but not the other substances. So, here in the below table you can see the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide at different areas. So, in the below table represents the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide at the different conditions. So, in the atmosphere, in the air we breathe, the partial pressure of oxygen is 159 and carbon dioxide is 0.3, only 0.3, and in the alveolar sac in the lungs, in the alveoli, the partial pressure is 104 and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40. Because the fresh air we inhale contains which reaches the alveoli contains the partial pressure of 104 and 40. So, the deoxygenated blood in the pulmonary veins, deoxygenated blood in the pulmonary arteries has the partial pressure of 40. Deoxygenated blood means the oxygen level is very low and carbon dioxide level is very high. So, the partial pressure of oxygen is 40 and the carbon dioxide is 45 here in the blood of pulmonary artery. So, in the pulmonary vein at the same time, from the alveoli, the pulmonary vein carries the oxygenated blood. So, after diffusion in the alveoli, the partial pressure of oxygen is 104 and after diffusion in the pulmonary artery, in the pulmonary vein, the partial pressure of oxygen is 95, and when it enters the tissues, again the partial oxygen is utilized in the tissues and carbon dioxide is being expelled. So, the tissues contain less amount of oxygen which is 40 and the carbon dioxide partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45. So, this is how the exchange happens. So, in the alveoli the partial pressure of oxygen is 104 and the partial pressure in the blood is very less, it is 40, and so the from 104 to the oxygen is moved from alveoli to the blood, and at the same time the carbon dioxide and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45 in the blood, and so the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveoli is 40. So, from 45 it moves to 40. So, from the blood it moves to carbon dioxide is moved into alveoli. So, at the same time in the tissues that the actual metabolic processes takes place in the tissues. Oxygen is utilized in the tissues and carbon dioxide is produced in the tissues. So, by using the oxygen the entire metabolic process happens. At the end of metabolic process carbon dioxide is being eliminated. So, upon the tissues contains a higher amount of carbon dioxide, the 45 the partial pressure of 45, the oxygen level is low in the tissues which is 40 mm per Hg partial pressure. So, the exchange again happens here, the blood in the pulmonary vein which carries the pure blood is being transferred into the, it's been given into the heart, and aorta which carries the pure blood, oxygenated blood is provides the required oxygen to the tissues. Here also the exchange happens between the blood and the tissues based on the differences in the partial pressure. So, also the second one is the surface area. The surface area of the lungs is very huge compared to it's very huge in area which is equivalent to the tennis court. So, as the area is very large, the alveolar surface is very large. So, we will able to utilize about 900 ml of blood can participate in the gaseous exchange at a single time because of the higher amount of surface area. Solubility of gases. Oxygen is expected to diffuse across the respiratory membrane about 1.2 times faster than because of its lower molecular weight. Based on the molecular weight, oxygen has lesser molecular weight and carbon dioxide has a higher molecular weight. So, based on the molecular weight, oxygen is 1.2 times faster than carbon dioxide. but the solubility of carbon dioxide in the plasma is 20 to 25 times higher than that of the oxygen. So as per solubility, CO2 is more soluble than the oxygen. As per molecular weight, oxygen is more faster than the carbon dioxide. So the net outward CO2 diffusion occurs 20 times faster than the net inward of oxygen. So that is why we are taking a higher amount of oxygen, but the diffusion rate is less compared to the carbon dioxide. So that is why we required any number of breathing times, and we require more amount of air continuously to get the oxygen. So and the last one is thickness of the membrane. So the lungs is made up of millions and millions of alveoli. The membranes present in the lungs and alveoli is very much responsible for the diffusion to takes place. So if a person is diseased, or if a person has any lung injury, or like any infection or scarring of tissues in the lungs, or any type of cancers, the alveoli capacity will be low, the membranes will be damaged, and the membranes will be inflamed. So thereby the diffusion of the oxygen and carbon dioxide through the layers of the lungs will be difficult. So actually the squamous epithelium of the alveoli, the endothelium of the alveolar capillaries, and the basement substances, these three layers, the health and the permeability of these three layers are very much essential. The cells present in these three layers are very much essential to enhance the gaseous exchange. The epithelial cells, endothelial cells, and the basement substances between these two cells are very much essential. So in the epithelium cells, to maintain the epithelial cells in a good condition, we require vitamin A. So or else if a person is deficient in vitamin A, the epithelial cells will be greatly damaged in the lungs. So these are the four important factors which initiates, which maintains the gaseous exchange. Thanks for watching.